Welcome to the Achieve Results Now podcast, the podcast that gives you immediate actions you can take to start seeing life-shifting results now. Hey everybody, welcome to the Achieve Results Now podcast. This is Mark Cardone.
And Theron Feidt.
So have you ever had, to our listeners and to you, obviously, have you ever had something that just didn't work the way you wanted it to work?
No, everything's perfect. No mistakes.
I joke around all the time in my office that we are in 2025, and I joke with you about this too, so I shouldn't say just at my office, but at the front desk when we're at the dojo. It's 2025, and to this day, with all the technology and all the wonderful advancements, I still cannot get things to print when I need them.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And it's so funny because we have all these things that should work, right?
Right.
All signs point to the fact, all technology points to the fact that when you hit the button on the printer should print.
Right.
But it doesn't.
No.
And sometimes that happens with our goals. And that's what we're talking about today.
Yeah. And goals is a topic that we've done many times. And I think it's definitely worth repeating. And this is going to be different than the other ones. Because I think it's something certainly that's not taught in normal school. You know, if you go to a specialty school or a specialty college, it's certainly talked about. But I think people don't realize how simple it can be to work towards your goals. I mean, not easy. Just because it's simple doesn't mean it's easy. Those are two different things. But as far as how to do them, there's steps. There's a way to learn. And there's a way to evaluate. We're going to go through, like we normally do, 3 steps here. But I think it's important that you listen with the intent to take action. You know, that's the name of our podcast, Achieve Results Now. It's important that you're not passively listening. You know, if you're in your car and you're doing, that's fine. But when you get to your destination, write down some action steps of things that you're going to do right now. That's how you're going to make your goals happen. And it really is just a habit. You know, you get in the habit of being action oriented makes a huge difference with the results you're going to get.
You know, and I like what you said about, they don't teach this stuff in school, right? They don't teach goals in school. I always, in my head, like I relate goals to math, right? And the reason I relate goals to math is because like math is a subject in school. They do teach math, right? But at the same time, like you can't get a third grader who's learning addition and subtraction to do calculus, right? And there's levels and there's steps and there's nuance, right, in goal setting. But one of the things I like most about math is when you do a math problem, if you show your work and you get the wrong answer, right? Why do teachers ask you to show your work? They ask you to show your work because if you get the wrong answer, you can backtrack through the work and see what's not working, right? And in today's episode, where we're talking about troubleshooting your goals, that really weighs into what we're talking about. We're talking about how to, if you don't have goals yet, go listen to our podcast on setting goals. But if you have goals and you're struggling with getting there, this is the episode where we're going to give you those action steps to troubleshoot so that you can start seeing results now.
Yeah. And I was thinking when you were talking about school, the teacher probably told you specifically to show your work so they could tell you weren't cheating.
Yes. Correct.
And so that's the other reason. But
you can't cheat your goals. You have to do the work.
You have to do the work. Absolutely. So step number 1 is run a systems check. Okay. And what that really means is you want to reevaluate why. Why is one of the most powerful words that you can use when goal setting. And once you ask yourself why do I want this goal? Why is it important to me? Why that is just going to make a huge difference with your motivation, a huge difference in just your clarity of your goals. And so by reevaluating the why of your goals, you may even find out that some of your goals, you're like, you know what, I'm going to put this goal off for a little bit because it's not as important as something else, or I might scrap it all together. And that's what you can find out with that first step.
And as it pertains to troubleshooting, this is like a stupid story, but I love my coffee in the morning, right? I love a cup of coffee, not for the caffeine, just I like having the cup of coffee in my hand while I'm working. And at one point, I think it was last year, the coffee cups in my cabinet, which I love grabbing and getting my coffee, had a little ring on the inside from where yesterday's coffee was, and they didn't look clean, right? So I had to pause and like clean the cups before I got my coffee. And it turns out our dishwasher was broken, right? It wasn't
Oh,
doing what it's supposed to be doing. So, something that really, as it pertains to evaluating my why, I found that I couldn't drink my coffee. Right. That was the end result of the why I needed a good
right,
dishwasher that worked. Right. So,
right.
so I think when we're looking at our goals, looking at what we're unable to do, what we're unable
Hmm.
to enjoy, because I think too many people get hung up on superficial why,
Yeah,
hung up
yeah,
on, they get hung up on that, oh, I want my pants to fit better, or I
yeah.
want my,
Hmm.
I want to be able to do this thing. Where in reality, we've talked about whys on this podcast 100 times, but getting deep into
Hmm.
what is my inability to achieve this goal preventing? Who
Right,
is losing? Tony Robbins loves who else is losing out because I'm not doing this? Who am I
right.
affecting? But really digging deep on that why, I think is great.
Well, it's about creating leverage with yourself. That's really what it
Hmm.
is. And you can create many leverages. So if I want to start working out because I haven't been, and I just do it on my own, well, that could work. But if I commit to somebody, say I'm going to meet you at the gym or going to meet you at the dojo at this time and these days, what's that do? That gives me a little leverage to do it. And so my why is, yes, my why, I want to get healthier, I want to get better, but also my why is I don't want to disappoint my partner that's supposed
Yeah.
to meet me. Is I want to keep that commitment that I made with him, so that way we're both achieving. So I think it's important that you it's okay to play games. Like, I think most of us as adults, we know what motivates us and what doesn't motivate us. And oftentimes, what we do is we won't do the things that motivate us because we know we're going to be motivated and have to take action on it. So then we decide not to do it. And sometimes it's conscious, sometimes it's subconscious, that we don't even realize that we're doing. You could call it self sabotage, but I think it's a little more surface than just the internal self sabotage.
Yeah.
But really, it's when you do this, I think it's important that you're building up the whys is in many areas as you can. So
Yeah.
that's not just about you, but it's also about other people that you care about.
Hmm. Absolutely. No, I think that's good. I mean, the more leverage you have on yourself, the more likely you are to get that goal that you want. And realistically, if you don't have enough leverage, you're not going to do the other two steps of this anyway because it's not that important,
Right. So
right?
just stop.
Yeah,
Just
you're gonna go. I don't really
stop.
want it that much anyway, so
Yeah.
whatever. It's fine. I'll wait
Yeah.
till next week, next month, next year. But getting into this the second step of this, which I think is this is if you've ever worked with a great coach, this is
Hmm.
what they are amazing. They can be amazing at,
Yeah.
but it's also something you can do for yourself. It just requires a
Right.
little digging, and that's pinpointing the specific obstacle, right?
Right.
Looking for the error message.
Hmm.
Printers are great at this, right? Printers
Yeah.
go, hey, you're out of cyan. I feel like I don't know what it is with cyan, but I'm always out of it.
Yeah.
Um, and now, whether or not you can ever have enough cyan, I don't know. But,
I'm not sure.
I wish we had like that little monitor on our sleeve, right? That said, hey, here's the reason you're not getting to your
Hmm.
goal. It's because you keep watching Netflix for 3 hours a night.
Right.
Or you keep, but I think, this is important is, the specific obstacle that you're running into.
And oftentimes you're going to find out that is this obstacle you're running into is similar to something else in a different goal, right?
Mhm.
So it's usually has to deal with a bad habit that you have that is affecting other things. If you have a habit of hitting the snooze button and you're sleeping in, and you're usually running late in the morning, well, that's going to affect more than just your job that you have to get up for. It's going to affect you on the weekends on with things that you like to do.
Yeah.
I mean, it can really have a negative effect all the way through. So when you're doing this error message and reevaluation, take a look at your habits that you have. And we've done many podcasts on habits. I think we just did one not too long ago on habits, and we've done many before that, because they do rule your life. I mean, that
Yeah.
that was probably one of the one of our titles to the podcast. And that can make a difference too. So reevaluating and pinpointing obstacles isn't just the ones that are in front of you because of your goals. Oftentimes the obstacles are you, and they're internal.
Oftentimes, but we always love pointing the fingers at other things. We love pointing the
We
fingers at
do.
our
Yep.
boss, our kids,
Right.
our things we have to
Our
do.
spouse, if only
All
my
of it.
spouse was, that type of thing. Yep.
But at the end of the day, it's interesting because if you really look inside, did you have 10 minutes to exercise today?
Right.
I guarantee you, if you said, what if I spent 10 minutes less, watching Netflix and did a 10-minute workout? And,
Yep.
and I tell people all the time, if if you have zero time to work out, you can find a workout. And if you don't know what to do, Google 10-minute workout.
Yeah.
You'll find, don't pay for it. Just find a YouTube video with a 10-minute workout. Don't overthink it and just go. Right.
Remember 7 minute abs?
Oh my, dude, have you ever tried doing abs for 7 minutes?
It's hard. Yeah.
Abs for 2 minutes is hard. Like,
Yeah.
so yeah, you can totally do a 10-minute workout and get a lot out of
Yeah.
it. But
Yeah,
I
for
think
sure.
that's a lot of it is just finding that, finding that specific obstacle. What
Right.
like what is, and not the surface level, like, oh well, my kids, my wife, blah blah blah. Everyone has responsibility, right?
Right.
Tough love, deal with it.
Yeah.
Find why you are not doing the
Right.
things.
Right. Yep. And then step three is the software update, which really means learn and adapt. So it's it's taking your old programming. It could be your habits that we just talked about in step two. It could be step one, your why. But it's really adjusting and changing your thinking and learning from the mistakes that you made. Because oftentimes when we're running into obstacles, it's a very similar obstacle that we ran into our last time with a different goal. Because if we're the same person as we were a year ago, we're going to have the same problems we did a year ago.
100%.
Right? We should be striving to be a better person each and every day. Right? That's what learning and adapting means. And so it's like the people that always have the same problems. This is always happening in their life. And the person has had 5 divorces, after a while, maybe after the second or the third, everybody, I mean, one certainly can happen to anybody and maybe even two. But once you're on your third, fourth, or fifth, maybe it's you. Maybe it's you. And
Hmm.
so obviously that's a huge life-changing thing, but it could be something small. It could be something small that you're tripping over all the time because you're not learning and adapting. And you're the same person you were a year ago,
Yeah.
right? And we need to improve.
I mean, part of the software update is internal, right? Part of it is
Yeah,
just
for sure.
what's happening inside of us. And when I think software, I think of our brain, and I think of
Yep.
everyone I talk to who says, "Well, geez, I don't have enough time," and I just say to them, like, what if instead of telling yourself that story, you told yourself when you woke up in the morning, "Man, I have a ton of time today." Right, like I have a ton of time in between these things I get to do, to do whatever I want, right, to fill in, to write my book, to journal, to write my goals, to go for a
Yeah.
walk with my dogs, you know a lot of it is just that your brain is murdering you, right? Your
Hmm.
brain has its thumb on you saying you don't
Right.
have enough time to do this. Your kids are against you because they're always needing stuff. Like, all of
Right.
that is just mindset and language that you're
Right.
using, right?
Yep.
And it's a story that your brain tells you to keep you where
Hmm.
you are. And the most impactful people I know use, I mean, people say, oh, that's corny, it's just like different words. The most impactful
Yeah.
people I know use those different words and they're
Yep.
crushing it.
Yep.
So, I tell people all the time, part of that software update is listening to what your brain's telling you and talking back to it and telling
Yeah.
your brain, no, man, I got a lot of, today's gonna be great. I got a ton of
Yeah.
time. I'm gonna
Yep.
nail a bunch of things. I get
Yep.
to do all these other things. Um, you will change your life.
And many times there's a fear thing too.
Yeah.
You have a fear, and it might not be a conscious fear, it could be subconscious, and that's what's holding you back. So
Yeah.
is really identifying those fears that
Hmm.
you have. If you have a fear of social, whether it's not just public speaking, but any social event, talking to a small group of people, and you're in sales, well, that could be a
Yeah.
huge obstacle for you to be a great salesperson. So you have to look at the fear you have, and also I think you have to look at what was your skills gap. There's we should all have a gap in our skills that we're working towards. If we don't have a gap that we're working towards, that means we're not pushing ourselves enough.
Hmm.
There should be always something you're striving to improve skill wise. And just about, well, really everything that we've talked about on any of our podcasts We talk about it because you can prove it. We're not stuck in that you can't get any better in this. You're stuck. That's it. That's not a thing. You can improve.
That would be awful if it was just like
It
this.
would be awful, wouldn't it?
Here you
Here
and
you are.
you should be happy where you are. It's so funny. I had this conversation with someone last night because they critiqued something and they said, "Well, I should be grateful. I shouldn't be making comments." And I said, "You know what? You can be grateful for what you have, but still have that level of inspirational dissatisfaction
Yeah.
to make it better, right?
Yeah.
That's what results are. It's wanting things to be better. But what you said about like public speaking in groups, there's your skill gap for people, right? Like if you're in sales and you're nervous about going into groups and
Hmm.
networking and talking, do number one, you can do it more and practice. But number two, there are classes, courses. I
Yep.
guarantee your area has a Toastmasters group that
Well,
would
there is. I was just thinking one of my friends has been doing Toastmasters because he wanted to improve his communication skills, and he's been doing it for a year or so. And he tells me all about it, and he talks about it, and it's amazing how great people are there and how
yeah.
much better he's gotten with it. And what is he doing? He's improving his skill. He recognized a gap that he had in his skill, and he's taking action on it. I mean, that to me, that's like awesome.
It's
You know,
it's funny because people go, oh, I'm gonna tackle my fears by going skydiving or something like that. Dude, number one fear in the world is public speaking, not
right?
skydiving. So if you
Right.
really want to fix your life, join Toastmasters and go talk in front of a bunch of people.
Yeah.
Um, they're waiting for you. But there's groups like that everywhere. Small groups, whether it's fitness, public speaking, finances. Like there's groups who will coach you and work
Right.
with you. There's courses, but really update your software, learn, get better. That's such a good part of this. That's the
I
fun.
was
That's the
I,
fun
I
part.
was I was thinking with skydiving, you should have a fear of it because you could die.
You should,
Like
but
I don't know what the percentage of people that died from giving a speech are. I don't think it's anything for giving the speech. They might have died because of natural causes during the speech. I'm sure
yeah,
that's happened.
that's all I can think
But
of.
skydiving, I know there's a specific percentage that have died skydiving,
Hmm. Yet it's
right?
not
And I'm not discouraging you from doing it. I'm just saying there is a risk of death.
right.
Where public
Where
speaking, there's not a risk of death. You would, if you're going to die, you're going to die in your car, your house, or your sleep, right? You're not
yeah,
going to die actually because you're
yeah,
speaking.
and
So,
definitely not going to that Chamber of Commerce networking event and talking to a small group of people. Like you're going to be fine, but you
yeah,
know, 100%. There's so much skill gap, and I would say out of the three steps, this one's the most fun, right? Because
yeah,
this
for
is the
sure.
one where you get to learn, grow, and change, right? And that's really what makes life exciting is that new knowledge and becoming a better person.
Yeah, and before we do the summary, I want to kind of um, encapsulate all of this with a tip: is find somebody. Hopefully, it's your spouse. It could be a good friend that you can bounce this stuff off of each other, especially in the skill area. If I say, "Hey, Mark, what do you think I need to work on? Where am I falling short in this area?" And you and I do this all the time in business. We just did it this morning before we got going in the podcast on certain things on marketing and everything. But you need a person or a couple people that you can do that with that are going to be honest with you, that have your best interest in mind. That aren't going to share your fears with other people and post it all over social media, right? So you need somebody that you can trust. But I think that's super important because we all can get in our head and have this thought and this way of thinking that isn't serving us, but we
Yeah.
don't realize it's not serving us. We think it's something else, but it really is us. And until
Hmm.
somebody points out and say, "Hey, this is why you're not succeeding in this area because of this," and if they say it out of love because they want to improve you, you're like, "Oh yeah, you're right." I mean, that's certainly happened to me. I'm sure it's certainly happened to you through the years. So I
They,
would recommend that.
they can be your built-in appliance repair person.
Yes,
The person who
yes.
tells you, well, it's not working because you put 2 pounds of spaghetti down the drain and that
Oh,
you can't do that.
don't do
Right.
that.
Don't do that. Don't ever do
Don't do
that.
that.
Mental note. But yeah, this was great. Let's recap through
Okay.
our um our steps. So number one, run a system check, right? Reevaluate your why.
Hmm.
Really get deep, build leverage, and get yourself wanting that goal again.
Step two is identify error messages. And what that is specifically pinpoint specific obstacles that are in your way.
Step three, software update. I almost like thinking about Neo in the Matrix, where they plug the thing into the
Oh,
back.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Those kung fu.
Yeah.
Update, fill your skill gaps. Look at the things you need to learn, the things you need to change, and where you need to grow to achieve the goals. And that wraps up this episode of the Achieve Results Now podcast. If you know somebody who needs some troubleshooting, maybe you can be their dryer
Mm.
repairman or repair person, whatever.
Right.
Share this episode with them, and we will see you on the next one. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. Hop over to our website at www.achieveresultsnow.com to get your free copy of our book, Ignite Results, 4 specific daily actions to help you achieve results now. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Achieve Results Now. Thanks for listening, commenting, and subscribing. Now get out there and achieve results now.